We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
Hey, it's Boysen here with the Mankind Podcast. We are closing in on 100 5-star reviews of this podcast, and we have a goal. Brandon and I want to get to 250 5-star reviews. So help us out, will you? Please go to the Mankind Podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a review. Thank you.
Professional baseballer Wade Boggs famously said, "Anybody can be a father, but it takes someone special to be a dad." Well, as we near Father's Day, we thought, what better opportunity than to bring together a diverse panel of fathers. I mean, I'm telling you, we hit the nail on the head with the men that we brought in to talk about fatherhood. Men that grew up without fathers, men that had dysfunctional households, men that in new stages of fatherhood, others that are adoptive fathers. Like, we really did bring together some of the best for this conversation, and I'm so excited for you to hear it, because we talk all about how each and every one of us out there who plays a role in our children's lives can really turn up the best we can, and that involves doing our work. That involves getting clear on how we can invite others in to help guide our children as they go through life, as well as really taking a good look at how the family justice system is so skewed and negatively impacting men's rights and abilities to play a role in their children's futures and in their lives. And so this is a deep conversation. There's lots of laughs. For those of us that joined us on the Facebook Live, you saw the laughs, you saw the tears, you saw the joking, and just how deep and wide we went in this conversation. And I'm excited for each of you to have a listen. So thank you so much for joining us today. Wishing all the fathers out there the happiest of Father's Day. Lots of love. Enjoy. Looks like the rain has gone. Let's pitter patter and get at her.
I'm using that.
Yeah.
And get at it.
That's a good one.
Wow, that's good stuff. I dig it.
Alrighty. G'day and welcome to a special episode of the Mankind Podcast, the show where what do we do, Boyson?
Break the molds of modern manhood and discover and explore and prove and complicate manhood and masculinity. And there are multitudes of ways to be a man.
Absolutely. And to kick off this special Father's Day discussion here, we are joined in great company. We have Tyrone Marsh. My friend, tell us a brief little bit about yourself. I know we'll get into more of it.
Oh gosh, where do I begin? Some people call me a Renaissance man. I'm also, let's see, where do I start? I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I am a theater guy. I am an intellectual. I have dyslexia, and I just move through and try and be in a flow. Yeah, that's really me. I'm in with that.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I'll pass it to a dear friend of mine and, in fact, my dad mentor, Eric Treese.
Hey,
take it away.
Yes, thank you, Brandon. Thanks for the invite. Good to see everybody. Eric Treese. So born and raised on the south side of Chicago, currently live on the west side. Dad of 4 daughters, ages 7 to 17. So this school year coming up, I have a senior and an 8th grader, a sophomore in high school, and a 2nd grader.
Boy.
So, and I just turned 52. So I'm going to be one of those old ass dudes dropping my baby off at 8th grade, and they're going to think I'm grandpa, right? Army veteran, been in recovery a long time, been around Mankind Project since 1999, certified co-leader and leader trainer in the project. Love doing men's work. Love being a dad. I was a stay-at-home dad for 10 years,
Mm.
and that was amazing. Hardest job I ever had. And I was an ex-Army Ranger, and raising those four daughters was hands down the hardest job I've ever had. Today, I do life and leadership coaching for a living, and I lead MWTAs, and I love it, and I'm in.
Nice.
Welcome, welcome. And this next man needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one. If you've been following the Mankind podcast for any amount of time, you know his name. You love him. The Paul Newell. Take it
Oh,
away.
I thought you were going to Boyston. I was like, yo, what's up? And I just got to say, Eric, if you keep doing that power yoga, man, you're going to be doing inversions, walking your daughter to 8th grade. So
There we
bless
go.
up to you,
There
man.
we
Keep
go.
rocking.
Thank you.
Keep rocking. Man, so thank you for having me. My name is Paul Newell. I'm a shift starter. I work with men. I help men drop their mask. I help men step into an arena of self-awareness, and I help them rise into their king and rewire themselves. I'm a dad of two. Used to be a dad of three, and we'll get into that in a moment. I'm a non-custodial dad. I'm far from a fan of fatherhood, to be frank. That's so I'm bringing that perspective. Um, some other fun stuff. I've had a double hip replacement. I love the Knicks and Brownie a la modes. And yeah, I'm in with that.
Thank you. Great to be back with you, Paul. Thank you for coming back. And Boyson, I'm going to pass it to you. Everyone knows you, but I would like you to give your own little father resume.
That's up. Father resume. That's funny. Am I the oldest, man? I'm 53 years old. And I'm a latecomer to this whole dad thing. When I first met my kids, they were 10 and 7 years old. They are now 20 and 17 going on 18. So one out of high school and one finishing high school tomorrow. Bless up.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting ready to celebrate with Ada as she graduates. And my journey has been full of encounters with Department of Children and Families and therapists and therapy groups and trauma-informed care and dialectical behavioral therapy and a whole lot of other things that my wife and I have. I am so grateful. My kids are amazing. They have changed everything in my world.
Mm.
And it's a hill. It's a hill that we've been climbing, and I'm in.
Thank you, Boyson. And I'm the whippersnapper of the group. My daughter is about a foot off the ground as it currently stands, and I'm so grateful for this work. I'm grateful for all you men for being here. Each of you have, in some form or fashion, impacted the way that I turn up as a father, as a husband in this life. So just beaming with gratitude right now. And I'll kick things off. This morning, I had the great fortune of going to my local talk radio station, and they invited me on because they wanted me to talk about how to be a better dad.
Oof.
And I thought, fantastic. I've been doing it a year and a half. I am an expert. I'm a black belt at this point.
Nice.
So when I got the call to do this show, the first thing I did was call the dads in my life and kind of interview each of them and get their perspectives. And there were a couple of things that really landed for me were, and I'll start with this one. I'm sure we'll get to the others throughout this episode, is one of the best things that I can do as a father is do my work.
Yep.
Build my self-awareness. Because at the end of the day, my little one is absorbing everything that I say, I do, and everything I don't say. They're just absorbing all of it. So having that awareness that she's just soaking that all up, it's that extra incentive and motivation to kind of look at the deep stuff, the scary stuff, the dark stuff. And so I want to kick it to you, Tyrone, and please take a moment to share about your kids as well. What was it like stepping into parenthood when your kids came along with the awareness and understanding that you didn't grow up with that paternal father figure in the household.
Almost definitely. So I should start off by saying I have two. I have my daughter. Her name is Arwen Vera, and she's 21. And she is exquisite in everything that she does. She is my heart. Um, she's the one who welcomed me first into fatherhood. I remember that exact moment of her coming out of the womb, of me seeing her, and the umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck. Um, and I remember freaking out, and I remember then having her on the table and thinking, my life is never going to be the same. It is no longer about me. So she is first and foremost my heart and soul. And then I have
Mm.
my son, Capula. Capula is fiercely independent. He is kind and gentle, and he is a philosopher. And he's also an MKP brother. So he turned
Mm.
18 and he immediately said he wanted to find out what the secret was. So,
Wow.
so I said, "There's no secret, but you can hop on a train and come on down and do your work." So he's an MKP brother, and that's interesting to have him as my son, and then as my brother. And there are times when I need to say to him, "I'm talking to my brother, not my son."
Mm.
Um, so I will say that I am completely blessed because I did not grow up with my father. My father is in prison. My father is in prison for life, and my understanding with no chance of parole. And the story is that he may not have done the crime that he's accused of. Um, and yeah, I didn't have him in my life. I had a stepfather who was absolutely a horrible, horrible man, emotionally, physically abusive to my mom, and was constantly reminding me that I was not his son and that at any point he could take me out um, because he owned a gun and he had no problem letting me know that he knew how to use it. Um, there was a lot of trauma. I was locked in my room. The windows were nailed down in the summers, the summer heat of the South. Um, Not a good place. Um, so when it comes to that idea of not having a father figure, I didn't. I didn't. I honestly didn't. But what I did have, and I will contest to this, I did have a very strong church family. Um, God is good, is what my grandmother, um, the matriarch of my family, God brought you into this world, and there's a reason for me to be here. And she she would tell me that God gave me to her as a gift, and she was not going to let that gift go to waste. So and she made sure that I read the Bible, and she made sure that I understood that there were father figures in that book, in that good book. So I grew up with that. Uh, there is not a positive male role model that I had within my own family. Um,
Mm.
all of the men in my family have served time in prison. I'm the first one to not to have done that, and my son is now the second one. And so we celebrate the fact that we're on a different branch. Um, and my fatherhood, being a father, has been a continuous uh, stepping into the fear of I am going to screw this up.
Mm. And so, in fact, Tyron, I think yes, every man raised their hands just now for those that are listening and not watching the video right now. So I want to find out what were some of the things that you had to kind of learn
Mm,
or perhaps even unlearn as you were figuring out fatherhood practically. Oh, and let me just quickly shout out to the
mm,
grandparents and the mothers and the grandmothers and grandfathers and uncles and aunts who are playing the role of
Mm,
dad and
mm.
mum right now, right? And having to fill in those spaces. So shout out to them. But yeah, Tyrone, what were some of the things as you were approaching fatherhood that you were like, man, I don't know how to do this. I need to learn that. And was there anyone in particular that was able to guide you in that space?
Who? Yeah, I would say there was understanding what the emotions were that I was having. I grew up with rage. That was the one true emotion living in the inner city in the projects of Nashville, Tennessee. I saw men just beating the crap out of their child, their girlfriend, their wife. So understanding that rage is not the emotion that I need to display when I am angry. Um,
Mm,
so that was really important for me to be able to say I am angry and not
mm,
have it then be followed up with some physical response of and then having fear um, instilled in my kids. So I think that was a big one in my emotions. Knowing what joy looked like, um, taking my kids to get ice cream. Ah, um, taking my kids to see a movie, and I took my kids to so many movies, and we talked about what the emotions were in the movies. Active listening. I sat and I would sit and listen to my kids. My kids have been my best teachers. So eh, they are. I can't talk enough about my kids. They are a gift for me. They have taught me to patience. They have taught me to be still. Um, when they speak, it's like they're dropping diamonds because I'm getting to see the world through their eyes as I actively participate in being a present dad. Um, and then also, I would say I'm really big on creating our own traditions. We, I, again, coming from the inner city, coming from the projects, I did not have many traditions. So, with Father's Day coming up, it is Father's Day weekend. I don't get a day, I get a weekend. And it's more important than my birthday. It is more important for me than Thanksgiving. Um, I have told them for me, not growing up with a dad, I hope that I am being the best dad for them possible. And that is one of the traditions. When they talk about me when I am gone, when I am with the ancestors, it is my dad, grandpa, great grandpa, he did this thing. So building our own traditions was really a key point for us.
Hey, Boyson.
Brandon, what's happening, man?
Mate, I'll tell you, little one, my daughter, she is becoming more and more her,
Bindi,
which
bindi,
is
bindi.
amazing. I'm just eating it up. But when I don't want to eat it up is in the middle of the night, 4 in the morning, when she's trying to skip naps and I've got a lot of things to do. That's when things get a little tough.
So, what are you leaning on? I mean, yeah, right. I get that. How much coffee are you drinking these days?
Well, mate, you know me. I'm certainly not. I don't like the vices. You've been in the health space for a while, and I get a little bit too hooked on those things. So I'm pretty grateful that we had the folks at Magic Mind reach out to provide us and the audience some value with their Magic Mind drink solution. And dude, I can tell you, it is blowing my mind.
What's it doing for you? I'll talk about mine, but what's it doing for you?
Well, mate, I think the biggest thing is sustained energy. That's what I need. I need to have the same energy at 10 a.m. as I do need at 2 p.m. But when the energy dips and I've still got work to do and she's crawling all over me, screaming in my ear, that is when I need to to be able to push through. And yeah, so I'm not getting the dips. And unlike coffee, I'm sleeping at night, which is amazing.
Yes, the ingredient thing. So that's me too. I've been a coffee dude for a very long time, and when I get into these spaces where I'm just working, and I get too much into the coffee, I end up like frazzled and stomach achy and jittery. And what I'm seeing with Magic Mind is like I've reduced the amount of coffee I'm actually drinking in the morning, and Magic Mind boosts the focus for me. So for me, it's like, how many things can I juggle in a day? And having that focus without the coffee stuff, without all the coffee downside, I think has been really good for me. And yes, the sleep thing, man, there's some ingredients in this stuff that have totally helped my sleep.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I mean, because you're getting the caffeine from matcha, which is an extended release caffeine as opposed to like an intense rise then dip. It's got all the fancy mushrooms that everyone's taking these days, including ashwagandha, which gives you that más fuerte kind of energy. And and fortunately for us, they've offered us a great discount that us and you, the listeners, have access to get 56% off your first subscription and 20% off a one-time purchase with the unique discount code MANKIND. So if you go to magicmind.com/mankind, you get access to this discount. And like us, you get to enjoy this sustained energy, that más fuerte energy. I can take that into a couple places. But yeah, big fans.
And yes. Check it out. Yes.
Yeah, and I need to get my wife to stop stealing mine, which would be great.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you. And you actually covered one of the other points that I gathered was what can we shifting the focus from what it is that I have to teach my kids to what is it I'm going to learn as a father? What if they were put on this earth for me rather than the other way around?
Oh God. Well, then I would switch that, and I would say, what am I unlearning? Which is, gosh, unlearning the suppression of my emotions. I can cry in front of my kids, and I'm still a man, and I'm still their dad.
Yes.
And so now I cry with my eyes up, and I cry. I'm a crier now since being a member of the since joining this motley crew of Mankind Project. I cry. I cry thinking about when my kids leave the house, and I say my prayer and I say I hope that my son is going to be okay, and I tell him. And he says, "Dad, I'm going to be fine." I say, "I know you're going to be fine because there's something greater than you. And because there's something greater than you that's behind you, it makes me emotional because I'm aware. I'm aware of the fact that you're a gift. And so I cry because of that. Um, again, when it comes to anger, I can tell my kids, I am angry. And because of this. And they turn around and tell me, Dad, you said this, and now I'm angry. I'm sad. They use all of that language. I tell them to use their words. Use your words and not your fists. That's a big thing. Breaking. I would say another thing is breaking generational patterns. Um, yeah, there were a lot of negative patterns growing up for me. Um, there was a lot of alcoholism, um, again, abuse, um, and yeah, breaking those patterns. I would say another thing is also thinking about another thing that I had to unlearn is this is how a man is supposed to be, and this is how a woman is supposed to be. A woman cooks and cleans. Um, I cook. And I'm probably no, I am. I am a better cook than my wife. My kids will say that I'm a
Me
better
too.
cook. So, uh,
Yeah,
and and
darn tootin'.
and they know, and they know I love it. They know I love going in the kitchen. They know I love
Mm,
doing dishes. They know I like doing
yeah.
laundry. They know that their dad looks really good in pink. So shout out to all the men wearing pink. Um,
Yeah, it's not salmon, it's pink. Own it. Own it. And I want to invite everyone present, if at any moment, like jump into this conversation. This is collaborative too. I know that Tyron, when you mentioned growing up in in an alcoholic household, hands went up just
mhm.
now, and our listeners can't hear that. So, guys, please feel free to jump in as we go through this.
And one other thing I would want to say that I unlearned is about how I disciplined my kids. Ooh, um, I experienced beatings. I
Mm.
experienced the extension cord. I experienced the go out and get your own switch. You get two of them and you twist them together, and it has the two heads. Um, Now, with my kids, I talk to them about consequences. You made choices. You made a choice, and this choice did not lead you to the result that you wanted. How do you want to change that in the future? Because as of right now, this phone belongs to me. I pay that bill. And so therefore you don't get the phone. You know, right? What also happens is you have more responsibilities in the house because you chose not to wash your one dish. You are now washing dishes for the week. So we do there's a lot of conversations in my household.
Mm. Beautiful, Eric. I saw you raise your hand a couple times. Uh, Tell me what's alive in you, having heard Tyrone share.
Yeah, it was great, Tyrone. Thank you. I appreciate getting to know you more. I didn't get I didn't get the extension cord, but I had a alcoholic dad, age 0 to 9, who was mean,
Mm,
you know, and he used to knock us around a little bit, and he was just scary, and then or he just wasn't present, and then when he did sober up when I was 9 years old, he's been sober ever since, so 41 years, right? Um, Even then, that was kind of a selfish process, right? He had to go get sober and he was
mm,
gone. And so by the time he really came back around, I was in my early teens and I was like, fuck you.
mm-hmm,
I'm not listening to you at all. And there was lots of conflict with my mom around just me being who I am. Um, and then, running the streets, man. We just ran the streets on
mm,
the south side of Chicago and got into all kinds of trouble, ripping and running and drinking and partying and doing lots of nefarious things, things that weren't healthy, things that stunted, my development and my maturity, for sure. I mean, it's, I often say like raising my daughters and watching my daughters grow up has been like me kind of growing up
mm-hmm,
right alongside them,
mm-hmm,
in many respects. Um, but yeah, the household scenario was tough. Codependent mom, alcoholic dad, and then co-parenting. They split up, but they were nearby, but I didn't trust either one of them. And then we kind of played the system where we one night we'd be at mom's, the next night at dad's, and if we were angry at one of them, we just switch and disappear.
mm,
Um and I think it was just wasn't happy. It was just there wasn't a lot of happiness in childhood, and I knew pretty quickly that I was as soon as I turned 18, I was leaving. So I enlisted in the army and I was gone, and I didn't come back for 5 years. And I will add to that though, even though all of that was present, I was able to witness my dad.
mm,
And I think a big part of my parenting today is just being present and witnessing, my daughters. I did witness him straighten it up, right? And I did witness my mom do some amazing things with her life, professionally and personally, after they split up, which I wasn't able to fully appreciate until much later. And I think whatever happened when I was a kid, the notion of being a dad was alive in me from very early on,
Mm.
and I knew it was something I wanted to do.
Thank you. Man, I'm digging this conversation because as you men are talking, I'm thinking of like like the origin stories of a man's fatherhood. So when you were talking about the alcoholism, like I was thinking of my dad and how he was a drinker. He was abusive. Fortunately, I mean, consciously, I didn't see the abuse. Unconsciously, especially as I've gone on in my work, I've noticed, I know that the abuse was experienced and
Mm.
felt. And the interesting thing is, as you men were talking, I started thinking about my experience of fatherhood, my experience with my father, and I had more compassion for him because I recognized how much
Mm-hmm.
anger and sadness he had experienced because he was abandoned. You know, he was a product of an extramarital affair, and just my grandfather had a bunch of kids. My dad had sets of kids with three different women. Like I followed that mold, and I find that like thinking about my dad, I growing up, I was scared of him,
Mm.
mm. And because my dad was just like a very like a Jamaican, like rough hands carpenter, painter, did a whole bunch of jobs, and he had these hazel blue eyes. And it's like when he got pissed, it was like, oh, jump, man, everybody run. So I was very scared, and I walked on my tiptoes with him, or like on like and I remember I used to be so frustrated with him because he would talk so much trash about my mom.
Mm.
And I was living with my mom at the time, and my mom would never say stuff bad about him. I mean, like she would talk about the child support thing, which I recognize now, but she'd always like go see your father, and like, and he would always be like, "Your mom's a witch. She's blah 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 blah," and I'm like, "Oh my god!" To the point where I did, I went after my dad, man. Like when I was older, he didn't come to my graduation, and I remember I tore him a new one, and I told him he was an asshole. I was like, "You're dead to me." And I didn't talk him. I'd walk past him and not even see him, and not even acknowledge him on the street. And then I went through a really tough patch because the last words I said to him were, "I wish you were dead, or you're dead to me."
Mm-hmm.
And next time I saw him, he was dead.
Mm.
And I never had a chance to reconcile. And I think that played a lot in my journey as a fatherhood because I was going into fatherhood from this like deficit, like, oh my God, I gotta rewrite the story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, help.
Mm-hmm.
And I went into it failing to look at the red flags, like my mate selection, like how I was really going to embrace fatherhood because I was in this deficit and I wanted to right the wrongs. And really, what I noticed is like looking back on my journey as a fatherhood is like parts of my journey as a father. I was my father, which is resulting in my alien, like not really seeing my kids. Actually, not really, like not seeing my kids at all. So I think it's very interesting that, and for the fathers that are out there, I think it's when Brandon before was talking about doing the work, I think it's so important that we do the work because there's so many things from my experience that I recognize were layers that were like wounds that were festering. That wasn't until I was able to scrape away these layers that I started to see these big wounds and things began to become real for me, like concrete, as far as like how I show up as a father and what fatherhood really means to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like what you said
Thank
about being able to see it
you.
because
Yeah.
it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still happening. I'm still a work in progress, and I've told my kids that I'm not perfect. I'm a person, and I'm a work in progress, and I'm still going to make errors, and there are cultural things that I'm not quite hip on, and there are thoughts that I have that are not current, um, and I can acknowledge that. Now I can say,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's my work. That's not yours. That's mine.
Yep. Yep. That is. I feel you on that. You know, dude, it's wild, man, because bro, I love you so much. I'm hugging you so hard next time I see you, bro.
Yeah, man.
You know, it's wild because Tyrone, when you were talking about what's the things, I think Brandon asked a question about what you learned as a father.
Yeah.
And I had joy as a father before I got divorced and like started dealing with the family courts. And I went to a point where I really couldn't stand fatherhood.
Mm.
And now I'm in this place where I'm like, I appreciate fatherhood because it's been in a way personal development for me because it's had to train me on active listening, response ability. Because as a father, you're going to get thrown into a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different belief systems, a lot of things. Well, you're supposed to do this and this and this. So a key thing I've learned as a father is it's about how I respond.
Mm.
And also I've learned about father energy.
Mm.
Because me as a non-custodial dad, even though I fail to see my kids, there's still an energetic there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's still an energetic there. So even though I'm like, I don't see my kids, I still can be connected to them. So that's one of the things as far as what have I learned as a father. I think those are the types of things in fatherhood that men accumulate over time.
Thank you, Paul.
I was just going to.
Brandon's computer crashed. I'm just going to say to the live stream out there that so he might be able to get back in here, but he apologized for coming out. And go ahead, Eric.
Thanks. No, thanks for the update because he did just disappear. I wanted to say I've never heard the term non-custodial. So I feel like I'm learning today. Thank you, Paul. And then the idea about doing my work, and Tyrone, you were just sharing. So my daughters now and I actually have a check-in template. We have many check-in templates with each other, but one of them is, "Hey, Dad, is this your stuff or my stuff?" And they know how to do it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Hey, is this one mine or is this one yours?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes it's me, right? I'm triggered around something, or I'm not happy, or I'm concerned, I'm afraid, I'm not, measuring up, or I'm not getting what I think. They're not doing what I think they should be doing. And sometimes it's their stuff too, right? And sometimes it's both of ours clashing.
Yeah.
But we have some language that we can share with each other that helps us get through stuff. I had my 13-year-old was at a sleepover on Monday night, and she was texting me late, and they like some of the girls at the party who she's really close with, and they're lovely girls, but they were clicking up, and she was feeling left out, and so she was texting me saying, "Hey, I'm not sure what to do," and I'm like, "Do you want dad? Do you want dad, or do you want the coach, or do you want dad coach? What do you want?"
Nice.
And she said, "I need a little bit of both." So I gave her, a little bit of dad stuff, a little bit of coach stuff. I gave her some prompts and maybe some things she could say. Then I said, "And it's up to you. Like, you don't need to fix this tonight. You can just get through the night. And if you want me to come get you, I'll come get you." And she made it through the night. And it was tough. And this, friend groups at 13 and 14 and 12, 13, 14 are just hard. And then my wife and I had this moment. We were like, "Man, is it us? Are we fucking this up?" Because each one of ours have had struggles at that age group, right? It was real easy to be like, "Is there something we're doing to create this?" And then I kind of look at the rest of the world, and one of my good friends, a couple, Todd and Kathy Adams, do something called Zen Parenting Radio, and they got tons of podcasts on parenting, and there's like now like pretty much every sixth, seventh, and eighth grader in the world is experiencing some sort of social unrest, normal social conflict, right?
Hard.
And how can I be with myself while they are being with their stuff?
I will say on that, when I was in college, I studied psychology and theater, and so I was waiting. Child and adolescent psychology. Okay, at this point, my child is going to do this thing, and I was waiting for it, and I was like, and I'm going to be prepared for the best comment. There is no best comment. There's no.
Right.
just winging it.
Responsibility,
Hmm.
right? Eric did the same thing. How did your daughter came to you with something? How do you respond? You failed to go in and say, "I'm going to fix this." You said, "Hey,
Right.
hey,
Hmm.
what do you want, the dad?" But to me, that's fatherhood in a nutshell.
Hmm.
How are you going to respond? Because one thing you say could be like, "Oh, that's okay. Let me save up for 3 years of therapy,"
Hmm.
or you could be like, "Okay, how am I going to respond in a way that's going to help this person, my kid,
Mm.
my child, find themselves while I still held this container that they're safe, that I can protect them for a certain period of time." So there's something big there, man.
Hmm.
I
I do want to one quick second. I do want to address the non-custodial. So I'm happy you never heard of that,
thank you.
because usually non-custodial comes you get more men than women get labeled that when they go through a divorce and separation, because majority of the time men end up being the non-custodial dads. And I think that that's a label that creates separation and division in the household, because now it's like, well, I'm going to put this person, I'm going to put the kid over here with the custodial parent,
Mm.
and the non-custodial
Yeah.
parent gets them like once every 17 years.
Mm.
So that's why you haven't heard it, and I'm happy you haven't.
Yeah, not to mention the label deadbeat gets thrown in there as well in a big way, right? And that's the amount of the weight behind a title like that and the length creates so much of a gap between the road to
It
healing.
really does, man. And I used to be like, man, deadbeats. Now I understand, because technically I'm a deadbeat. And most of the time, like after going through the situation as non-custodial dad and family courts and fighting and being rejected and losing and spending a lot of money, I'm like, you know what? I'm washing my hands. You got my number, you
Mm.
got my address. If you need me, come through. But people don't hear that side. They only hear like, I don't see that he doesn't come to see this. So I think that's a problem. And for the men that are out there not as non-custodial dads, please, men, no, you're not alone. Okay,
Yeah.
hold tight, just breathe, and know, like, just stay in the game.
Mm.
Stay in the game. I'll
Yes,
leave it at
and
that.
I'm just going to say 6 months ago, I had the honor, the dubious honor, to support a friend in some child custody stuff. Zoom court. I'm there as like a witness, basically, to support them, corroborate some stuff. And as we're at the Zoom court, actually mimics a courtroom, so
Mm.
we're all sitting in there together, and I get to hear all the cases that went before they called my friends, and it was a education unlike any I've had about the court system and dads and paternal rights and maternal rights. And we were on for 4 hours. There was one dude who was in county jail in Orange, unable to do anything, but he showed up to court. Another guy was on the run, and he was like, I'm not telling you where I am, but I'm still going to send the money in because I'm
Mm.
trying to get
Mm.
right with the courts and with my child, but I'm not going to tell you where I am because I don't want to get arrested. And so listening to how all of that went down, it did seem a little kind of skewed one way that I was kind of surprised about. And it was a real fight for the dads in that courtroom. And I will never forget that.
Mm.
And my friend still has not seen his daughter in 9 months.
Bro, don't, man. You know what, Brandon? I told you I was going to try and keep it together. But let me tell you what, the family court system is rigged. Like this is one of the reasons. Like I've seen this. I've seen all sides, and it's like, it's ridiculous what happens in family court, because a lot of times these guys that are going to jail, they're asked to pay child support that's astronomical and out of range. And the thing is if you get out of child support, then they take your license, they take your passport, they take
Right? How you
everything that
supposed
you
to
can do
work?
to make money. How are you supposed to work?
Right.
So this is the thing that's like, I'm really like, especially as I go to my 50s, I'm really going after reform, because I think fatherhood is such a sacred thing. The thing is that people look at these situations between mothers and fathers, and especially in our culture right now, there's more division, there's more separation, there's more divorce, unfortunately. And there's mothers that are single moms and that are having kids on their own, and then these guys are just on the hook for paternity. Like, a lot of these guys are thinking that they're doing right. Like, I'm one of them. I thought I did right with my second kid. Like, okay, well, this kid is mine, right? Well, yeah. Well, you with somebody else? Well, it didn't make timing doesn't work. Okay, he's mine. Until like I've been alienated for 2.5 years. I go get a paternity test, and I just found out that the kid is not mine. Now I paid $130,000 in child support. Now I'm not supposed to get any of that back.
Mm.
So my vision of child support is completely skewed because listen, I'm doing the right thing. Like, look, they were taking $1,500 out of my paycheck a month for child support, and I wasn't making that much. That's why I got a side hustle, and it takes the joy out of fatherhood for a lot of men that are experiencing it. And there's a lot of men that are experiencing it. So I appreciate that we have this collection because hearing Tyrone's experience, hearing Eric's, Brandon yours, and seeing yours, and Boyce and yours too. Listen, fatherhood is going to have its ups and downs. The key thing is that it can be a potent, powerful thing because you're helping build up another. People don't really. I think that's far from applauded or acknowledged in this culture right
I want to jump in there and just because for me the word father brings up a lot of things. For me, not having my father around, I do remember him sending me uh, a letter from prison, um, and having him say that he wanted me to refer to him as dad.
Mm.
And I looked, you're not my dad. You're you're my father. You gave the sperm, but you're not my dad. And there's something very different for me when it comes to dad. My son calls me Pops.
Mm.
That's his nickname for me. That's how that's in me. That dad energy, that daddy energy. My daughter, when she really wants something, she's daddy. She
Daddy.
says daddy,
Yeah.
and I'm
now.
wrapped
Love
around
that.
her finger,
Yeah.
Bless
and
up.
hearing
Yeah.
that. And I want to also applaud the men out there who are wanting to be daddy, um, who are wanting to show up in whatever form
Yep.
it looks like. I want to be a part of my child's life.
Yeah.
I want them to know that they're loved. Because for me, in the inner city, the men that I saw were not wanting to love their kids. They were just from one home to the next to the next. There were babies all over the place with all different names, last names, and somehow being related. And now it seems as if there are more men, at least from what I'm seeing, more men wanting to say, I'm all in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, guys, on a couple things, right? Especially like us doing the work and going through the warrior trainings, the I group circles. Uh, do you find that you're seeing more men that want to be involved compared to before?
Yeah.
Do you think that's changing it?
I think that's definitely changing it. And I've got some dads in my circle who are not in contact with their kids right now. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to point out a couple of things. There's a, there's a dad in my circle who's been alienated from his kid, not in his kid's life for a very long time. And the first thing I want to say is that there's still a connection, even if there's no contact.
Mm,
There's
Let them
still a
know, man.
relationship, even if there's no contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get to watch this man process and continue to work through his own grief and sadness and shame, all of that, right? And a much younger man in my circle who's going through it from a very, very different place, where he's trying to figure out how he can do all the things that he can do to keep up
mm,
with what you were talking about and not live in a constant state of rage
hmm
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
from
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
This
real. And
is
Boise, you guys
this is
know. Yeah.
Jedi
You do. Yeah.
level
What's that,
stuff.
Brandon? My apologies.
No, no, this is Jedi level emotional
mm,
like
Yeah.
resilience
It-
and
Yes.
work. Because you see this in our work all the time. I believe we attract a lot of dads that are in this predicament because it's finally a place where they can in a healthy way move through this stuff. But take it
Work
away.
on it.
Yeah,
Process it. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for that, man. And I appreciate that these men want to be in their lives. I just, from my personal experience, because Boyce, you and I have known each other for a while, and Brandon, you and I have, you've been in these conversations as well back when like I was really struggling with a lot of stuff, and I think it's important to know one of the things that helped me, and I want to relay this to those men that are outside, that are disconnected from their kids or alienated. Please, 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 man, take this opportunity to get to know to love yourself. Because if you fail to know how to love yourself, I'm going to speak for myself. I was unable to know how to love another. Simple. Because my rage would come through, my anger, and I was good at wearing masks, so my shit would come out sideways.
Yeah.
And also it's recognizing I contributed to this situation.
Yeah.
Before I was like, they did this to me. Well, actually, like I was angry. I did this to them. This happened. I was in this space. I had to learn to give myself love and grace, because I think that's the thing with fatherhood. Fatherhood is one of those things. If a man has yet to be a father, first of all, please know that you still have father energy. And second of all, please understand that fatherhood is one of those things that fails to get acknowledged.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at how things are presented, it's different than how mothers are dressed, right? Like, oh, my mom did everything for me, and they most likely did. And your pop drops the seeds of life. Okay,
Right.
So just let's be real. Let's say that.
I joke with my daughter. We always watch the award ceremonies, and what do they do on those award ceremonies? I'd like to thank my mom, and I'm like, where is the dad? Come on now. Who?
Bruh.
Yo, so maybe it's an actor thing. Because then if you go to some of the awards for athletes, women athletes, there are a lot of women athletes who point at their dads out there and say, "What's up?" Yeah,
I would say one thing that I realize I've kind of found a role, certainly around MKP circles, talking to dads, current dads, but especially newer dads, who the newer dads, they are, they're doing the work with us, they're staffing weekends or NI group, and they start to get the thought, some of it's maybe pressure from home, from their partner, or even just their own stuff like, wait, I can't do both. I can't be an I group and raise these kids. So I got to leave the work for a little bit and go raise these kids, and then I'll come back. And what I will tell you for me is that being an I group has saved my life, literally, right? And when it's come to parenting, it has absolutely up-leveled my game of parenting, right? And I've been able to bring stuff and process stuff and like cry Monday night when, my daughter was, felt like she was being excluded. And to let, and one of the ways I've been able to do that is to include my kids in my I group. So when I groups at the house, they meet the men, right? We do social stuff together. So they know I'm going to do a weekend or I'm going to do stuff, with Mankind Project. They can put faces to names. And they're like, oh, you're going to hang with Brandon or with Boyson or with Mervyn Cottam in South Africa or Mike Patterson on the West Coast, or, so it's not like just dad's secret little thing that I run off and do, right? They feel like they're a part of it and they get it. And we've even done, and I have the honor to run this father-son weekend I was talking about earlier with you guys before we went live, and I run a father-daughter weekend, and right, we do circle work there, right? And dads and daughters are there connecting and doing vulnerability work. So they know what it's like to check in. They know what it's like to sit in a circle. They know what it's like to be vulnerable. They have tools that are available to them if they want it.
Yeah.
So let me run.
You
run
go
it.
first, and then I'll come in.
Yes, I'm going to run it. So I want to shout out to my dad as you share this, Eric. I want to shout out to Bill Cliff, Soaring Eagle, or Southern Eagle, as it is. And, he got into this work when I was 9. And my recollection of events was between the age of 4 and 9, he and I were not doing crash hot. And he was the most rageful, terrifying, scary man I'd ever known. But to everyone else, he was charismatic, loving, gregarious Bill. And there was a distinct change once he did his weekend and started sitting in circle. And I feel so thankful. I can truly credit everything I have in my life to the influence of Mankind Project and the men's groups that he was a part of. And even when I turned 18, Tyrone, I'm sure my dad's agreeing with envy because he will listen to this. He listens to every episode.
Hey, Bill.
When you said your son went through at 18, when dad was 18, he had bit a hole in his tongue because his eye group was saying, don't push him, don't push him, let him wait. And I'm like, I'm 18, Dad. I know everything I need to know about the world, you know. MKPs for broken men or whatever, like, you know, this for guys who mess up. And yeah, lo and behold, 23, there I was, like, didn't miss a circle for years. And I really got to thank my dad for being the one to do the work, right? Because a lot of his work was generational too. And that's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of weight to carry when the habits, the behaviors, the characteristics that I've learned that are no longer working for me and my relationships to my kids and my wife, and they've been learnt from generations, man, that's some heavy lifting. So I want to shout out to my dad, and to also hearken on the point of do the work and don't step away from my group because, I got to do dad stuff. Like, trust me, if you can make time on a Sunday to go for church, you can make time on a Tuesday or wherever to go to iGroup. Plain and simple.
Men's group has my men's group has saved my ass. And I was in a men's group for a long time before I became a dad. And it was at a men's group at a table in Denver, Colorado, doing some work on my own father, that the idea that I could be a dad happened. And I was pissed at those men that it came there, and it was like, oh fuck, it's in me. Like, I can feel it because I had pushed my dad's in my life. My dad's 82 years old. I love my father. I love my father a lot because of the work that I've done around my father in groups, processing my anger, processing all that stuff. And then when I became a dad, my kids had lived a whole life before I ever met them. 7 and 10 years old. They had been imprinted by men in ways that, they had been imprinted by men in ways that were hurtful and dangerous. And so my early dad journey, like for a year and a half, my older kid basically just said, I hate you. And that's what I took to group over and over and over again to work on it for me, so that I could be clean and clear and continue to be heart open and loving and present and offering and inviting and questioning and being there for my kids as they learned a new way to interact with men, as they learned that there were men who were safe in the world, as they learned that they could trust.
And great point here. You are not their only archetype as a man. For Eric's daughters, Eric is not the only archetype of what it means to be a man. It takes a village. It takes more than one man. And I think the lessons I have, how did I go on this radio show to talk about fatherhood and I'm a year in? It's because I'm surrounded by giants and people that I've learned so much from. And lessons like, if you try and be the dude for your kids, you are setting them up for failure. Because it's going to create some weird, probably Oedipus animus, some form of complex. Your daughter's going to date guys like you, and that's never going to work out well, or whatever, right? You know, insert a million different outcomes here. But to let them know, like, hey, daddy's fallible. Daddy makes mistakes. And there are areas that daddy's never going to be strong. But your coach, your uncle, your grandfather, there are so many others you can learn from in this journey, in this process as well. And so in turn, taking the pressure off myself to try and get it right.
I have told my kids there are three MKP brothers that I have that have kind of signed up as uncles to my kids. And one of them, I'm going to call his name out, Heisuku Mike Bain, is one of my
Mm.
kids' uncles. And and those who know him know that he has a very unique way of speaking. Um, so
Yeah, down the
and
line.
sometimes I call him up and I say, I need you to handle this because my dad energy is not there right now. Can you please talk to my son? And he will talk to my son. And my son will listen, respectfully listen, because he trusts the men that I have now put into their lives.
Mm-hmm.
My son trusts them. And I will also point out that my daughter, when my daughter saw my homecoming after my NWTA, and she heard all the men talking, my daughter said, now this is one of the men that I would like to one day marry. This is the type of man who is aware of his emotions, who is okay with crying. And I said, as your dad, whomever it is that you decide to marry, they will need to go through the NWTA.
Nah. So people go, "Oh, you're living in America now, right?" You know, so when your daughter brings home a boyfriend, if she does, am I going to be sitting there in the rocking chair with the shotgun, you know, polishing
No,
the
I hope
rifle, and I'm
not.
like, "Well,
Hell no.
I got something, I, I got something way more
Hmm. Hmm.
terrifying: emotional intelligence." And how does that make
Yeah,
you
man.
feel?
That's it.
But how about,
That
That's big.
talk about sphincter puckering. Like,
or maybe not. Maybe it's actually
uh,
normalizing
Yay.
for our daughters and the people they're interacting with, what my daughters, whether they're boys or girls, because one of my daughters identifies as queer. Maybe it's just normal language now that we can talk about feelings.
Hmm.
And they've been around all these AA dudes and all these MKP dudes, and it's, and in therapy, and they
Yes.
hear me talking like a coach,
Hmm.
right? So now the language is normalized, and so they can
yeah,
now look for partners who also have normalized the language, right? Or it can
yeah,
be very scary, like you were saying, Brandon. But I like the idea that, like, oh yeah, like, they meet somebody who's, been in therapy, or dad, is in recovery. Like, okay, yeah, so was
Hmm.
my dad.
mm.
That's
I,
not a
I
big deal.
Yeah. Watch this next
I
generation.
love
Hey,
seeing my kids as they have engaged in dating, and just the stuff that just like flows out of their mouths, like, yeah, she's not communicating very well with me right now, so she and I really had to sit down and have a heart to heart. It's just like, wow, when I was 17 years old, nah,
Hmm.
that's not where I was
Hmm.
when I was 17. So I love that. And to sit down with a boyfriend and interact with him in a way that's like, hey, dude, you know who I am, right?
Hmm.
We're going to have an honest, upfront, accountable conversation right now, right?
yeah,
No
yeah,
bullshit.
Hmm.
Like, and yeah, the guy who comes into the house better know
mm,
that no bullshit here. Yes.
yeah. You know, I hope, as I kind of envision, cool thing about being in this stage of parenthood, and I'm sure all of you can resonate, like trying to cross the river too early. Like, what's the solution to this problem, which likely won't happen till she's 12? You know, like what if Bindy's best friend's parents
Right.
suck? Like, insufferable. And it's like, Christine's like, that hasn't happened yet. How do you know that's going to? I don't know, but it still keeps me up at night. But as I start to kind of cast my vision into the future, I really hope that as Bindi deals with stupid boys or stupid girls or whatever, that she has the wherewithal and the compassion to be like, being a teenage boy is really confusing. And also for her to understand, like, these kids have hormones raging through them like you would not believe, right? And her to have those kind of optics to be like, yeah, Timmy was being really rude and a jerk and sexist and whatever, and he's also
Yeah.
15, and Timmy gets a pass. I'm not going to cancel him at school or anything. It's boys just figuring it out just like everyone else is. And I think that might help create some change, because I'm talking to some kids these days as I'm doing some stuff in schools, and they're canceling each other, and they're casting people out because of silly behavior. And I'm like, thank God I didn't go to school these days, because I have a list of things that if I, I'm not proud of, behaviors and all the rest. So hopefully kind of passing on compassion
Thank you.
and the awareness to go like, hey, man, like everyone's trying to figure things out at your age. It's a gauntlet being in high school.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's really hard.
Even middle school is hard right now, man. Like it's different. It's different for these kids right now.
Yeah.
And I blessings to them for going through this, because and blessings to the men that are their fathers and their dads that want to be there. One thing I'm observing I want to call out is, as I'm hearing you all speak about your experiences and with the kids, and like even thinking ahead of the curve, like what's going to happen down the road and what has happened, I hear a lot of the father energy. And I heard when Tyrone, you were talking about, like dad, I'm dad, or daddy, or pops. I think something so important for men to recognize is that we all have father energy, especially with Brandon, when you were talking about the generational piece. I know for me, when I first really started stepping into this fatherhood energy, or father energy, it was when I started to peel back the layers and understand the wounds of my fathers and see them as men and be able to extract the wisdom. Because I think the important thing for men to realize, regardless of what your status is as a father or dad, it's key for us to hone into our father energy, that wisdom, the neutrality, the compassion, that the masculine compassion. These are all different things. Like, so, I say that because I have friends that don't have kids, yet they have father energy. They're amazing coaches. Like, they're amazing trainers. They have this way of teaching and guiding, which is what I'm hearing in each one of you as you're talking about your kids. And I think that's so important for more men to recognize, like, oh, well, I'm not a dad, or I want to be a dad. Hone into your father energy and what the heck that even means for you first. If you can do that, like, you're going to be in the upper echelon like these men here. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge that, like, Father's Day, but like, what is father energy? Because that's an important piece for just being able to guide the next generation, or even when, for you all that have daughters, like when that son comes, boys, I heard you talking and sitting them down. Hey, listen, let's talk about this. So like, Brandon's going to hit him with the EQ mastery, bro. You got to be ready. That's father energy, because I'm coming to you with some wisdom, because I want to see you win. I want to see you successful. To me, that's father energy. I'm curious what it is for you guys, if you have thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's needed. That's needed so much these days. And shout out to organizations like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, right, that are setting up those relationships where someone who can come in and be able to hold that role, right, sit in that seat and play that role. And Joe Ehrmann's words, right, we create better men with greater coaches, right? It's so important. So
I think
important.
I think
Thank you
their
for
role too. I was talking to Troy Harden the other day about this, and we have kids who are around the same age, and he's a long time Mankind Project man, and the folks, kind of the group around us, like the funky unkies and the godparents, and then even the men in my eye group, like who look. Some of our kids go to school together. They're classmates, like even friends. That they feel affirmed, witnessed, and blessed by the men in their life. Affirmed, witnessed, and blessed. And makes a huge difference. And that's like, that's all I wanted as a little boy, right? All I wanted was just to be seen and to be blessed and to be like told I was doing good and I was,
Yeah.
that I was okay and I wasn't the problem. And so now that everything that I've learned through my journeys as a parent, as a dad, and my men's work journey, like everything that I've learned how to give to my own little boy, I can give to my daughters, right? And to the boys around them and at school. And so much of it is just about being present and witnessing.
Yeah. That's a great point to shift in the energy now as we close out our conversation. Thank you, Eric. Man, I want to invite each of you to really check in, not just from this conversation, but really channel that fatherhood energy that Paul has kind of welcomed into the space and brought into my awareness. And to think about what it is that you want to send out there, that you want to transmute into the world to all the fathers out there as we come to Father's Day this Sunday. From your lessons, from your learnings, from your experience, what are some words of encouragement that you want to give right now to anyone who's listening, or just energetically out there into the universe? And I'll kick it off. And this is regurgitated from the amazing men and fathers I have in my life. It's not everything great or perfect that you do for your kids that's going to be their greatest teachers or their greatest lessons or their greatest gifts. It's also going to be how I wound my daughter, that she's going to learn and that she's going to grow, and that's going to be her greatest gifts, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And to give myself the grace to know that when that happens, knowing I have the tools to repair, it's going to give her a beautiful opportunity to identify what it is that she wants and doesn't want in her life. I'm in. Next man.
Yeah, I'll lean in. Mentor Will Flanders, who was the officiant at our wedding when Kendra and I got married 19 years in August, Will always said the truth's in the relationship. And so if I can project something out to all the dads and fathers who are out there, stop pretending that your kids don't know what's going on with you. Your kids know what's going on with you. And the mask that you wear that you think is so slick, it's bullshit, dude. Your kids know. And so the work is to figure out how to get congruent in yourself so that you can show up with your kids. That's it. Just do that. I'm in.
God, I wish the listeners right now who aren't watching the video could see throughout this whole call the facial expressions, the tears, the hands going up, the clapping,
Right. I tell you what, man, I got the ugly face on because these cats taking me to church. Like I got the fatherhood Holy Ghost up in this piece, man. What the dick is? Boy, look, let me check out, man, because you guys got me all souped up, man. And Father's Day, I wasn't even looking forward. Now I'm happy about this.
God, I missed you,
So
Paul.
listen,
God, I missed
bro,
you.
I missed you too, bro. Woo! So listen, the two things I got for men that'll listen to this: get a group of men. Have your group of men. I like to call it the King's Court. You can call it your I group. Have a group of men that are going to challenge you, that are going to hold you, care for you, invite you, be there for you, like how Mike is there for Tyrone's kids. Have that in your life, because I'm telling you, most men go around lonely and
Yes.
don't have anyone to talk to. And you all heard it here. If you didn't hear it, rewind, zoop, 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 zoop. Come back and listen to what Boysen was saying when he was in the circles. Just being able to express your frustrations will help you heal. So stop bullshitting. Get your freaking men and let them know what's going on. Stop holding on. Drop the mask. The second one I have, which has been helpful for me, is teach yourself what it would mean to father yourself.
Yes.
Because chances are you're fathering from a wound. So if you address that, you learn to father yourself, and you learn to address that wound, things will open up for you in ways that you never knew were possible. And it is possible. So go for it, guys. You got support more than you know. And I'm in.
Thanks, Paul.
Tyrone, you or me?
Rock, paper, scissors. Issue.
Oh God, dude,
Issue.
I can't do it.
Issue
I
then.
just, it's me. It's me. It's me. Thank you. I wanted to say thank you, like to the idea of father energy and connecting with that, whether it's for myself or for my daughters or for the community of around us, my cousin, my nieces, mostly nieces, a lot of girls in my family, and I think the message I want to send to dads today, I guess for this Father's Day, is around um, even as dads we can nurture. Like
Mm,
in like my
Yes.
journey through parenthood, I have done
Yes.
side by side with my wife, and
Yes.
she is probably more masculine than me, and I am probably more feminine than her as far as archetypal energy, and we have found a way to balance that, I think, with our
Yes.
daughters. But that as a dad, I can
Mm-hmm.
nurture, right? And um I can nurture their dreams, I can help respect and grow their strengths, I can support their independence, I can guide them and help them have a foundation where they are finding their own voice and claiming their power
mm,
as women in this world.
mm,
um, and then set them free,
mm, mm,
right?
mm.
Separate from them in a good way, and watch them grow and live. And that is my it's my want for myself, and it's my
Yes.
want for the men listening.
Thank you.
You guys are tearing me up. Ugh, I'm a mess over here. Um, show up.
Mm.
Um, there's there's a saying that I've been saying for most things now, but I really think is true when it comes to fathers, dads, daddies, pops. We add value to the
Mm.
room. We just need to show up. We just need to show up. We don't have to say a lot. Just show up first and be in the room. And for me, letting my kids know that I am a safe place for them to rest.
Yes.
Um, they can try and talk about all sorts of things, and I'm there to listen, not to judge. And I'm there for them to know that I am trying to become the best ancestor that I can possibly be because I'm hoping to one day be a granddad.
Mm.
And I'm hoping that my grandchildren will say, back in those days when you did podcasts, what was that like, Grandpa? And I will tell them, I got together this group of dads, and we talked through some stuff.
Mm.
Um, yeah, just show up. Just show up and just be present. That's that. Some men may feel that that's not possible, but even if you can't be there physically, again, that energy, spirit. I will use Heikusuku's Mike's thing. Spirit drives the bus. Just allow the spirit of fatherhood, dadhood, drive that. If you can't be present, be the best version of you so that in case you can be, if they do show up, then you're ready. That's what I would tell them.
That was sick.
Yo, man, if we were a music group, man, this would be a hit. Be a hit, man. We'd be rocking tours and shit. Ooh, God.
Yeah, but
Man.
and I would be the crier. I'm telling you.
You can't.
That's beautiful, bro. That's beautiful. Thank you all. Thank you, man, for everything you put in, man. Damn. Inspired.
Well,
Inspired.
with that, I don't think we need to add any more other than to bless and thank each of you that have joined us for this discussion. We should do this a heck of a lot more often. So thank you all for showing up. Very, very last minute call to action for each of you. And you chose to be here, Eric, on your birthday. And thank you. And thank you to everyone who joins us each and every week, whether it's live here on Facebook, you 1.5 million wonders out there, or if it's through the ears on the podcast, the Mankind Podcast, where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove there is more than one way to be a dad.
Yeah.
And this
Thanks,
is also
everybody, for
a
being
reminder that we've been doing this long enough. For free, pull out your phones, go to iTunes, and please, would you please smack that review button. Boyson's laughing right now because I was at a bus stop. Get people to pull out their phones now because it's about dang time. We got hundreds of hours committed to this.
Like,
And
subscribe,
please
and
like,
share.
subscribe, follow, and share.
Yeah.
Lots of love. We will see you all next week, and
Thanks,
happy
guys.
Father's Day.
Bless
you,
up.
brothers.
Bless up.
Peace, man.
This has been another episode of the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. We have been your host, Boyson Hodgson, and myself, Brandon Clift, and we want to thank our guests for joining us today and imparting their wisdom from their experiences in this amazing journey called life. If you want to find out more about today's guests and support them in their mission, you can find links to them in the show notes. Now, if you have found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, we are always grateful for a rating and review of the show on iTunes. Now, above all else, we've got to thank you, the listener, because through your attention and your support, you have made it possible for us to let men all over the world know that they are not alone and that there is more than one way to be a man. And if something in this episode has touched you, then perhaps it is the call to action to get involved in men's work. With live trainings happening constantly and in-person trainings happening all over the world, the Mankind Project definitely has something for you. Now, if you've enjoyed the music in this episode and all of our episodes, be sure to check out Jim Donovan and the Sun King Warriors. I have links to them in the show notes. And lastly, just know, what it means to me to be a man is completely different than what it means for you. That is the beauty of this journey. So if you are looking for guidance, support, and community as you begin to unpack and dive deeper into your men's work journey, then you know where to find us. Same place, same time, next week. Lots of love. We'll see you then.